Hi, I'm Digby Beecham. I'm the Chief Sports Reporter for the West Australian newspaper here in Perth. I was fortunate getting into my career was that I got a cadetship. I'd only done 2 weeks of Year 12, and I think I was probably one of the last to get an opportunity to go straight from school, effectively bypassing university, and got a cadetship. So I was actually working well before my 17th birthday, and that was something I just grew up playing sport and loving sport, watching sport, listening to sport, thinking I was a commentator on sport as a kid. So once I got an opportunity to do sport, it was good. Like when I got my initial job, it was just as a cadet reporter. Naturally, I gravitated towards sport. My first sports editor at the Bunbury Mail was now my sports editor at the West Australian. So it's a 20-year friendship, and I've worked away from him for a while. But again, when he came with the offer to come and work for him again at the West Australian, it was something I jumped at. Been at the West Australian now for near 3 years. Have been working since I was 16 when I started as a cadet. So it's been best part of 20 years I've been covering sports. So it's been a pretty full-on gig. No, there's a number of reporters, sports reporters at the West. We probably have 6 or 7 or 8 here that cover football, AFL, and therefore one of them doubles up as a cricket reporter. And then we're getting into, obviously, the basketball's big here in Western Australia, the soccer, Perth Glory, big here, and we're in the process of getting another person who will cover the Western Force full time. So we're across all sports. We'd like to think we're across all sports, and obviously we've got a racing team as well, which not only looks after what you see in the West Australian, but also Tabform, which is a pretty big racing, pacing and chasing publication that comes out 3-4 times a week. So your working conditions for the bulk of winter, and I say that because of football, are pretty full on, but then again you have a bit of a good extended break over summer. The glass isn't always half full. There's occasions when it's going to be half empty, and there are occasions you're going to upset people, and there are going to be confrontations along the way. Now, I'm not talking physical confrontations, I'm talking verbal disagreements, and therefore you get told this and that, and you're not welcome, or look, you better be careful if you come back here because we're not going to speak to you. That's going to happen. Now, in time, that passes and the like, but it's not all glamour. There are occasions where you're going to upset some people along the way, and you're going to pick up your phone sometimes and there's going to be an angry message on it. But that happens, that subsides, but certainly the pros far outweigh the cons. A weekday you can start at 6:37 if there's a breakfast or something that needs to be done, and sometimes you're working until 8, 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. But in saying that, you get days owing, and you sometimes have, if there's nothing going, your boss will say, look, go home, you've done your work for the week, which is very enjoyable and much appreciated. Yeah, the balance between your personal life and work is important. I think if you're a slave to your work, therefore it affects your personal life, and we all like to have a good time and catch up with family and friends, and I think you have to get that balance, because if you don't devote enough time away from work, your work suffers because you become a little bit surly and a little bit upset with your environment. So it's important to get that balance, and I think in time that you do get that balance. Sometimes you might go one way or the other, but it's important to get that balance. Do I enjoy my job? I love it. Yeah, certainly there's days I think where we all get a little bit grumpy with the world, and but invariably it's a great job. You meet a lot of people, it opens a lot of doors, and you get to see a lot of events and meet a lot of people that you wouldn't have met otherwise. So it's a very enjoyable job. Where can the job take you? Well, it depends how far and how ambitious you really are and how far you want it to take you. You know, you can work here and you can work interstate, you can work overseas. One thing journalism does do is it opens up a lot of doors, and you'll find a lot of people from Perth and country WA are now working overseas, or, you know, have worked overseas and now have come back and worked in Melbourne, Sydney, or come back to Perth. We have people at the West Australian who have worked on Fleet Street in London and have been exposed to big events and big newspapers and big media corporations, and therefore have brought that talent back to Perth. So therefore the beneficiaries of that are us that are working with them. So it's a great opportunity. It opens a lot of doors. For young people wanting to get into the career, make sure it's what you really want to do. There's no use doing 2 or 3 years of uni or doing 2 or 3 years on the job and then realising this isn't for me. You really have to know and be sure that this is the path you want to take. If you do want to take that path, it's an outstanding job. and it's an outstanding opportunity, and you'll meet a lot of good people, and it's a big industry. I've been very fortunate. It's taken me some great events, and I still love it now as much as I did when I was 16, 17.